Spencer, and this is The Dysfunction, the talk show where we interview a new neurodivergent person each week. Every episode's unscripted, unplanned, and we just kind of dive right in. So, my guest this week is Salandra. Salandra, why don't you tell everybody where we can find you, real quick?
Hey. You can find me on TikTok at Solandra, Solandrah on TikTok. And on Instagram, it's the same, except at the end, it's education, as in high school education, but just education. So Solandra Education.
Nice. And Salandra comes all the way from Australia, but we met on TikTok, so we didn't need to travel that far. Now, I know you have ADHD. Any other comorbidities that you'd like to share with everybody in the world?
Yeah, anxiety and trying to figure out if it's depression or hormonal things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, anxiety and depression for me all the way, so I'm totally familiar with that. When you were diagnosed with ADHD or self diagnosed, I don't know if that was your route. Were you an adult or in your youth?
Last year,
Ha. Yes.
last last Feb, April? No, I don't even know what month it is anymore. Last April. So I had been going to therapy for depression and anxiety for like years and years and years. And it just felt like it was working, but it wasn't working quite good enough. Like it wasn't life changing. It helped with like being able to regulate my emotions in certain scenarios. Like if I was anxious in public, I could think back to what my therapist said about being present, like looking at what I can see, focusing on what I can hear, that kind of mindfulness. And that would help a little bit, but it wasn't life changing and it didn't
Right.
explain a lot, you know? And then I watched last year Jessica McCabe's TED Talk on
Oh, the famous TED Talk, right? Like, absolutely.
yes. What's it called? I think it's called Failing at Normal.
Yep. Oh,
Bloody amazing.
I still
And
recommend it to everybody. Like anybody who's new to all this, like that's the first video I send people.
yes, yes, same. I'm like, you need to watch it. Um, I just found it so relatable and it just explains so much. At the end of the video, I cried of not sadness or even happiness. It was relief. I'd never cried. I don't think I've ever cried like that before. It felt like, oh, this makes so much sense. But wait, do I have it? I don't know. So, of course, you go down the rabbit hole of researching ADHD. Do I have it?
Right.
And in my mind, I still thought it was this not a big deal diagnosis. And so, yeah, I texted a friend of mine who's a therapist, asked her, do you know anybody that can diagnose ADHD? And she said she forwarded a psychiatrist here in Sydney that she recommends her clients go to. And yeah, I went to go see the psychiatrist and got diagnosed. And I was like, so do I have ADHD? I guess I missed his name. And he's like, yes. I'm like,
That's
yes.
yeah. That's hilarious. Okay, so you were diagnosed basically the same time I was.
No, really?
Yeah, April of
That's
last
wild.
year. Yeah, April 15th. This might like it actually might be my anniversary here coming up. I don't know.
Happy
Any day.
Annie.
Yeah, thanks. So, what do you think has been the biggest change for you over this last year since your diagnosis?
Jeez, what hasn't been? Gosh, what a loaded question.
Right. Well, and it's so
Uh,
broad that I know you're not going to be able to think of anything, right? Like, I did
yeah.
that specifically to trap you.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for trapping me. I've been trapped and I'm caught. um, I think everything, but the main thing would be work because I'd been so career driven for so since I was a teen, essentially. work looks so different for me now. Knowing my energy levels,
Yeah.
knowing how much I can take on, um, and just knowing that my brain works different to so many of like my other friends who run businesses. So different. So I would always try and do business like they did.
Right.
And I would ask them, how do you do this? And I'm like, dang, that they make it seem so easy. Um, why is it so easy for them? Why do I feel like I'm working nonstop? Um, and I see them like going to a cafe and relaxing, or they'd be like, yeah, I just took a break. I'm like, what the hell is a break? Like you
Right.
don't stop thinking. So that was fascinating for me, and it almost made me feel like before I was diagnosed with ADHD, like I wasn't enough. Like if I didn't do XYZ, I mustn't be good enough for this, or I don't talk or look like XYZ.
Right.
Oh, I mustn't fit in, or I don't belong, or whatever story I may be telling myself at the time. And that was like it made me feel almost less than my my peers that ran their own businesses.
Oh,
If that makes sense.
I can totally understand that. I relate to that completely. And I would say that the way I kind of run things in my businesses are totally not like the way most people operate, right? Like, and I think it's a beautiful thing. Like my kid's running down the stairs right now. He's probably broke something. But where were we? Sorry.
We don't.
Uh,
Classic.
you can't. I'm sorry, and I knew that interruption was coming.
Oh, you run businesses differently.
Oh
Like
yeah,
it's so yes, that's
um,
what you.
I've realized, and I started realizing this like with my medication. Like I told my doctor, I would love a medication that I could have, and it works for like 4 hours, because that's much more the way I operate. I'll sit down, and I can work, 2 to 4 hours at a time is kind of my sweet spot, and then I'll go away and not touch it again for another day or two. And that's why I can do a lot of different things is because I just work on things in like pods. But it's a way of keeping my brain engaged, right? I can't sit
Yeah.
down and just focus on one thing unless I'm hyper focused on it. But I'm able to like build things in slower increments. But I feel like a 3D printer sometimes where you have to like build over here and over here at the same time, and like you don't really see any progress for hours and hours and hours, but eventually it all gets built and it looks pretty cool, right? Whereas some people just sit down and just do the whole thing, and I've never really understood that, especially when like you have to review your work and stuff like that. I hate reviewing my work. So like in my business, I know my weaknesses, right? So I've really tried to embrace those, and that's the biggest thing for me over this last year is my weaknesses. I'm not trying to hide anymore. I'm leaning into them. I'm trying to understand them, and I'm trying to find like creative solutions for them now. Where before I just internalize it as guilt and shame, like you're saying, like why can't I do what other people are trying to do? Yeah, I love the way you said it too.
Yeah, it's just when you're someone who has such big goals and aspirations like a lot of us do, and whatever they may be, it, whatever the goal may be, it's important to us. Like, so my goal in my career at the time before I was diagnosed was really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I held such huge value to it that I would constantly be seeking knowledge around it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh,
if I couldn't do it, it'd just be like, why? Like, I don't understand why it's not working out the way I want it to, or the way it looks like it should.
so would you say you've aligned to a new kind of value system since your diagnosis?
Yeah. Don't put up with people's BS.
There you go. That's a good one. Should be top of the list for a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. And well, it depends, right? But it's all relative. But how many clients I take on and who I actually work with, funnily, like it's been wild because ever since I've told people that I have ADHD, like my clients haven't gone away. I
Right.
guess like-minded people do find like-minded people, and it's not scary. If anything, it's quite like I've lost friends over it versus work.
Right.
Now, I don't want to deter anybody from getting a diagnosis, but there is still such a huge stigma around ADHD and the workplace. And I would say more so for me is in my personal life than
Oh.
work.
Right. Oh.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I,
Oh, good
I,
riddance, I suppose. No, no,
well.
not good riddance, but like it is a shame that it happened because you think you have these friends through thick and thin, but as soon as it's because of the medication, there's such a huge stigma around it.
Right.
They'll say, a friend of mine said, well, you don't need to, the classic, an old friend said, you don't need to put a label on yourself or minimize yourself to ADHD. And I'm like, I'm not minimizing myself to anything.
Right.
If anything, this is expanding me. This is giving me so much more freedom in knowing who I am.
Right.
And people being very like, oh, about ADHD medication. But when you're treated properly, and if you're able to, it's such a privilege. People think it's
Absolutely.
like completely misused, but actually it's such a privilege. And like the classic, when people say like, I forget to take my medication. What are you talking? Yeah, that's me,
Right. Right. Well, and people think it's like this hard substance, which it is, like in high quantities. But when I take it, like it's so gentle. Like I don't really know it's working. I always tell people it's like the difference between wanting to do something and just getting up and doing it. Right. Like it's just that little difference is all I feel. That it's so like I can see like forgetting to take your meds, right? Because you're not feeling. It's not like this like you're stoned or something constantly. It's just in the moments of hesitation that your brain has, like you're able to have action.
Like, oh, holy, oh, what? I can pick up this random sock that's been sitting there for a year. Are you
Right,
kidding me?
right. That I've just been staring at in that corner right over there that I see every time I walk by it, and I internalize it like, oh, I'm an idiot for not picking that up. Why won't I just pick that up and then just keep walking by? Yep, I know that suck.
Yeah. It's like, wow, this is pure magic. Sock.
Right, right. And then one day you just pick it up, like no problem, like it was the easiest thing in the world the whole time. Like,
Yeah.
ah,
Yeah.
I know the feeling all too well.
Yeah.
So you were obviously you've gone through school undiagnosed. Tell me a little bit about your schooling experience, and I know this is a totally loaded question because nobody had the best school experience, right? So we're all
My
aware.
husband did. Let
Did
me
he?
tell you, he loved
Oh,
it.
was he just?
I'm like, F you, liar, liar. And he's like,
you
no, I
peaked.
loved it. I'm
You
like,
peaked, dude.
go to hell. Go.
Okay, well, some people are special, I guess, but not
That
the
guy.
majority, right?
Love him.
So, like for me, I just did a video on TikTok where I struggled throughout high school, right? I got like a 1.4 GPA in high school. I don't know if you do GPAs and
Remind me what a GPA is.
grade point
My husband's
average.
from America. He
Yeah,
told
so a
me.
GPA is your average grades throughout your high school career, right? And they're weighted a little bit. But the best you can do is a 4.0. B average is a 3.5. A C average is like a 3, I think. But I had like a 1.4, so like way below failing. I don't even know how I got a degree. But I go to college, right? And because I'm focused, I wanted to go to college. It was stuff that I was really interested in. Like I graduated with all kinds of honors and like I got dual degrees and like it was all because I was engaged, right? And I had the option of being there versus like working in like a job I was hating at the time. Where in high school I didn't really care. you know. So were you somebody who was really engaged in school? Because I know like a lot of ADHDers are like that honor roll student type of person, or were you kind of like the burnout like I was at a very early age?
I was so growing up, I moved countries 3 times.
Oh wow.
So I was
Wait,
born
wait.
here in Sydney.
So 3 separate countries, or wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've
All
I've
right.
lived in many countries.
Yeah. All right. Walk me through, because I'm trying to bring up my geography lessons in my brain so I can picture this. Okay.
So we'll start down under. Nah, oh my God, how cringy is that? We'll start in Australia, where I was born in Sydney,
Okay.
and then when I was 4, we moved to Singapore.
Oh wow.
Um, for a year, I think it was. I don't remember it at all, but I do have some core memories from there. Oh, a ghost opened my door. Just kidding, it's my dog. um, and we moved to Singapore, and then we moved to Jakarta, Indonesia, where my mum is from, and my dad got a job there, and that's why we moved there. Schooling was, I think from memory, in Singapore was fine when I was around 4.
Uh-huh.
I don't really remember all that much, but my schooling in Jakarta, I just remember being bullied a lot. I was that kid that was left out.
Aw.
So at the time, we would bring Beanie Babies to school,
Oh
right?
yeah. Great.
Remember?
I love that that's global. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So I would bring 2 Beanie Babies to school, or 2 or 3, while other people would bring 1 at a time because I had no one to play with. So I know. And I'd be that kid making mud in a plastic cup out of sand and water, you know, and sometimes I'd have a random friend to play with. But I don't remember what they look like, but I had a bully, and I had broken my toenail, and I had it wrapped up in a bandage. And this bully of mine, she would purposely stomp on my toe. That's what I remember. But apparently, like, these people that bully can, for some reason, point out like that if someone's different.
Oh right.
That's what my psychiatrist said. I was like, oh, okay, so it's an actual
Oh,
thing.
so you can like sense it, like a spidey sense. That's
Yeah.
great.
I had
Like,
no
like they
idea.
can sense your weakness. like,
Yes,
oh,
like
no.
you. Yes.
Right.
Target.
That's terrifying.
And then I don't remember how I did in school. Well, I didn't do well in math or anything. I was really good at art, or I really enjoyed art, and I guess that's why I was good at it. Math was really boring for me.
Right.
But listen, coming from an Asian family background, that was not okay. So I was put in extra after school math class,
Oh.
drilling math. And so by the time we moved back to Australia, when I was in year 6, do you guys have year 6 there? I know you guys have like junior school, secondary, what?
What, year 6, like we go all the way up to 12 here.
Yeah, we go up to 12 too. But we have something called like primary school and high school. You guys have like junior high, senior high.
Oh yeah, we have elementary school, junior high, senior high.
Elementary. Elementary. Yeah, that makes sense. Duh. When we moved back here to Sydney in elementary school, I was really good at math. I was like top of class, wizard.
You're
because
like, I got this. I've been trained.
Yeah.
like, no.
I've like have this instilled fear if I don't get this right. like
Right. Oh,
trouble.
that internalized anxiety about it. Okay.
Just like, I got this. I'm the best in class. So year 6, I was top of class. It was always me against this in class. It was me against this this guy. His name was, I don't know if I should say it, but I'm sure it's fine. Alex. And
you hear that, Alex? You just got named on this show.
Alex, you got named.
How random was that?
I wonder where he is now. Actually, what he's up to. My rival, my academia rival in year 6.
I love that.
um, uh, and he was the smartest person in class before I got there. So we competed with how fast we could do a test, how, like
Okay.
who, like all that stuff. But go into high school, I was that nerdy kid in year seven. I guess this is junior high
Uh-huh.
in America. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge backpack, massive. Here we have
Jan
uniforms.
Sport.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't use that here because we have uniforms. We
Oh,
have the
okay.
school uniform backpack, massive, filled with textbooks, this little body, like carrying like a turtle, like going to school. Um, and I did okay in year seven. I don't remember year eight. I don't know why. And year nine just went downhill from there.
Uh-oh.
Downhill. I hated school. I got in trouble a lot. Detention. I had detention buddies. Like that's how often I was in detention.
Right.
Uh, but I did go to a Catholic high school for the first part, and then the second high school I went to was a public high school. Um, and I was bullied to the point where, yeah, people were threatening to kill me,
Oh
which is
no.
pretty intense. I apologize for that
Jeez.
intenseness, but yeah, I hated high school. Hated it with a passion.
I don't
Wasn't good
blame
at
you.
it.
I would
Um,
too.
yeah. So glad to be out.
For sure. That's okay. So, I mean, I don't want to ask you about your bullies, right? Like, no, because they're jerks, right? So let's move on. Tell me about how you got into photography. I know that's a little bit of a difference, right? You didn't start right out of high school,
I started in high school.
did you?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You've been doing it ever
Yeah.
since?
Yeah. Well, pretty much. Yeah.
So
On
did
and
it
off.
start as like a hyper focus, or was it like something you had to do? Because like I'm curious how it latched on that long. You know what I mean? Sorry,
Pretty
I might
wild.
just keep asking you questions and keep talking. I'm sorry.
No, no, don't apologize. Please keep talking and keep asking questions. Um, so it was in year 10. I chose photography as a subject. Um, and I fell in love with it. We had a dark room, and so we would like develop negatives, and it was so cool. And just learning about different photographers and different styles. And I guess that became my hyper focus and somewhat of a special interest in year 10.
Right.
I even did my friend's assignment for photography. I loved it that much. I finished mine and she's like, "Oh, I hate this." And I'm like, "I'll do it."
I
Like
gotcha.
she's like,
Yeah.
"What?" And then she got a better grade than me. Huzzah.
Oh no.
I remember that. I was like,
Oh.
no.
Right. The justice
Um,
sensitivity's going crazy on that
what's
one.
wrong with me?
Right.
She didn't even do it. Can't even tell the teacher.
That's so
Uh,
funny. Oh, that's a
but
fantastic story.
mhm. It started then. And out of high school, I studied events management. I wasn't doing photography. Um, but then I got into fashion through events management because we had to do work placement and get work experience. So I went into Fashion Week. And when I first got my first volunteer role at Fashion Week out of high school, I was like, "Oh my God, this is the dream! Made it." And then from there, I started styling and working on photo shoots and dressing models. It sounds super glamorous. It's
Yeah.
absolutely not. Like taping shoes on the bottom to make sure they don't get scuffed and untaping them and steaming a ton of clothes. Um, but then I officially got into photography, I would say 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 or 4, doesn't matter.
Right around there.
And just absolutely love it. I still do. But then I got burnt out because I went too fast with starting my business. And I put my camera down. I said, "I'm never taking a photo again. I'm not even kidding. This is what happened." Like I told my husband, "I'm never doing
When was
photography
this?
again." This was was it a year ago or a year and a half ago? I put my camera down.
I didn't know that.
Mm,
So, all right. So, what, if you don't mind, like, what led up to that burnout,
mm.
and like, how'd you pull yourself back out the other end?
Yeah, it was wild. So I've been working my butt off, styling and in photo shoots, and I still felt like I wasn't getting nowhere. And the spaces I was in, nobody really looked like me unless, they were a black model or a brown model or an Asian model. But behind the scenes, like it's very rare to see a brown or Asian woman
Right.
working behind the scenes, behind the camera or lead styling. So I had to really fight my way through. Like I had to be excellent. Like there was no room for mistakes. Otherwise, I'm out.
Right.
Compared to my white peers who, especially photography for men, they could do an average job and still get high praise.
Right.
Um, Whereas the women, they had no room for mistakes or failure. Excuse me. Um, and so I started working for a studio, freelancing, and I worked so hard. I started producing there freelance as well. And then, yeah, I demanded to get paid what the other people were getting paid as a stylist and
Yeah.
photographer. They said no. And so I asked the clients directly, do we have budget for this? And they said yes. And so I went to the studio manager. Hey, studio manager, if you're watching this, I know you stalk me on my socials. um, he didn't like it. And so he made lies about me.
Oh,
Yeah,
snap.
the clients knew it wasn't true, but because he held so much power, he could kick me out. So I got kicked out of that studio, even though clients were personally asking for me, purely because I asked to be paid
Right.
what the industry rate is, not below. Um, and then finally, um, I got work where I was being paid um, fairly. He still didn't like it, so he continued to kick me out. I burnt out. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to do photography full time on my own, run my own business. I did that. Um, Burnt out so fast because I went from that heartbreak,
Right.
essentially, going into, I guess, my rebound.
That's a great way to put it. I mean, I can see it.
Yes. And you're going to get rejected a lot in business.
Yes.
And the rejection sensitivity sucks. And
It's the
so
worst. Oh yeah.
I spiraled and I wasn't diagnosed.
Right.
So once I was diagnosed, I picked up my camera again. That's how
That's
I
what got
started
you back.
taking
Well, that's amazing.
medication that worked. And yeah, I was diagnosed. And I was like, oh, I never thought I would
That's so
do
cool.
this again.
Well, I'm glad you did. Like, obviously, like, it's helped you a lot. I'm sorry about that story. Like, that's shitty. Like,
Yeah.
fuck that.
RSD hit hard and the revenge like did not I didn't do any revenge, but in my head I'm like
Right.
like I'm going to be so damn successful, you're going to eat my, like, such ego
Right.
grossness. um and I burnt out.
Yeah. I mean, I I totally understand the burnout feeling. Right. Uh, how do you think that was like the start of you kind of searching a diagnosis? Um, because that's kind of
uh,
like what led me to seeking an ADHD diagnosis outside of TikTok. Uh, was I did kind of have that burnout because of COVID. Like I was working like 16 hours a day in banking, and like eventually I was like, I think I'm having like depression symptoms or something. Like I need to talk to somebody about this. And I think that was kind of like the first initial sign that something wasn't quite right with me.
yeah. I mean, 16-hour days, anybody would be like, help.
Right? Well, it was so hard because like I didn't realize how much I needed transition time.
Oh, the
Right,
transition
and
part.
I think we've actually
That's the
talked
hard.
about this before, where
Yeah.
like I would just come downstairs and start work at like 7:30 in the morning, and like nothing would tell me to stop working, right? And so I'd work, until 7 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, and then I'd just be dead tired, and I'd go back because there's always more you can work on, especially as an ADHD person. You have a picture of something in your head. You can always work on more things. And I didn't have that, okay, let's call it quits, decompress on the drive home for 15 minutes or whatever, and then just be, a husband and a father. Like, I didn't have that. And so it just kept building up. And eventually I couldn't even get myself to like move the mouse on the computer, even though I was like staring at it. Like, come on, like, let's go. Just, I need to do some kind of work. And just like having an internal panic attack. Um, yeah, it was terrifying. Like,
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah, I think it was similar for me. Like I couldn't even pick up the camera.
right,
I didn't even want to answer one more email.
right.
I didn't want to deal with anybody. It's just like leave me the hell alone. Leave me alone.
I get it. That's exactly where I was. Um, it's hard to explain to somebody. You know what I mean? Like, I'm glad you understand. I
It's
love doing
like
this
a
show because, like, that's exactly it. Like, I
it's
find.
like a two it's almost like I explain it sometimes uh to people. For me, it sometimes feels like negotiating with a 2-year-old. Like you have your logical side that's like, come on now.
Right.
It's really not that big of a deal. And then it's like, no, it is. No, it really
That
is.
was my balloon. You don't
Yeah, that was
understand.
my balloon. You're gonna be fine. Am I though? Am I though? And it's like this internal battle.
Oh yeah, I can
Um,
totally get that. Like I always say, my brain's a bully, right? Like if like I feel like mine will just hide stuff from me when I need it the most. Like pulling those like jerky kind of pranks on me. Like I would appreciate it if you didn't. Like I get it, it's kind of funny, but most of the time it's just like totally uncalled for in the scenario.
by 7 a.m. this morning, I lost my phone like 5 times already. Like,
I don't know. Like I've started strapping my keys to me in my belt loop. Uh,
that's smart.
but like I jingle everywhere I go now. But it's totally worth it, right? I'd rather jingle a little bit than lose my keys everywhere I
Yes.
go. So like, uh, my wife's been like doing those little hacks, or like she put like a key ring up. I swear. All right, let's talk about our spouses a little bit. Is your
Yeah,
is your husband neurodivergent?
we suspect so.
Okay.
We are still waiting. Wait, I need to close this door because he's eating his cereal so bloody loud.
Okay.
Bloody hell. Hold on. My waist blanket. Oh, it's the best.
Oh, I went and bought one, and it's too heavy for me, I think.
It's too heavy. Yeah, yeah, it can be too. I love, like, I asked my husband, like, I'm laying flat on the floor like this, and I'm like, Bo, please, just flop on top of me. And he's like, what? And he's like, you can't breathe. And I'm like, do it. And I'm like, ah.
Oh, that's great.
Yes, spouses. Is he neuro? Does he have ADHD or another diagnosis? Yeah, we're not sure yet. We suspect so.
Oh, nice.
Have no clue. Maybe not.
Okay. My wife is neurotypical, so I was gonna ask.
Ooh, fascinating.
Right. So I was gonna ask if there's anything that your spouse does that helps out an ADHD symptom or something like that, without like you guys actually knowing you had ADHD. So something he did to like help you out before you knew had ADHD with your diagnosis. Anything like that?
Oh man, I have to think about that hard.
Because my wife, she like hung the key rings up. She's like, we're not losing keys anymore. Like, this is the system. Like, she got all the dog leashes all in one spot, so I'm not just throwing them on the counter and stuff like that. But like, she would give me like little ADHD hacks that I didn't even know were a thing.
That's awesome. I've put the dog leashes in one spot. I've put the key bowl in one spot. So the ADHD person in this house did that. But mind you, do they stay in that spot? Absolutely not. I've lost my keys many times, even with the key bowl.
Right. Right.
And you'll hear my husband, because he's the one that usually takes our dog Mika out for a walk. Where's the leash? I don't know.
Right. Oh, yeah, I'm
Um,
constantly losing stuff.
but he is like, I guess something I'm really jealous of. And Bo, if you're listening, listen, this is so unfair. He can just wake up. I don't know. Can you do this? If he wants, if he's in bed and he wakes up and he wants to he will just get up.
That's not usually me. No. So my wife is the opposite. She can go to bed immediately. Where I
Same
can
like him. Yeah.
no way. Can I do that? Yeah, no, I'm not either of those people. I've got to like fight it as long as I can. My brain's like, nope, let's draw this out. Well, and part of that's like you got to wait for that anxiety of your morning to like build up. Like you don't have anywhere to be. Like if I don't have anywhere to be, you're not getting me out of bed, right? Unless my kids are like banging on my head. Like that's all there is to it. But like, and same with going to sleep. Like I'll lay in bed for hours some nights and just it just doesn't happen. And I always tell the story. Before I was diagnosed, I thought like my wife had like a sleeping disorder or like depression or something. And like I joke about it now, but I was legit like I think she might be sleeping a little too much. Like this might be like we might need to go to the doctor and get this checked. And it turns out that I'm the one with like the revenge sleep, whatever that thing is, where I'm
Yeah.
up like because I was getting like 4 hours of sleep to her 8. And I was like, all right, kids need 8 hours of sleep, but like, do adults? Like, no, I don't think so, you know? And like, it seemed totally irregular to me just because that was one of my symptoms of ADHD, right? I was stay up till 2 in the morning and pretty much be okay. Like, if I get 3 or 4 hours of sleep, I'm fine. But it just totally caught me off guard. I was literally Googling like WebMD, like sleeps too much. Like, what's going on here?
It's a sign of depression.
Right. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh. Oh no, we got to get her in.
Because you perceived it as too much.
Right.
Not what.
But it wasn't near enough of what I was getting. Right.
Yeah.
So funny.
That's fascinating. Yeah. No, my husband, yep, he can go to bed when he wants, most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. And he can just get up, even if there's nothing important going on.
Let's see.
And I'm like, what in the bloody hell? How do you just
right. So
get like what?
How does he do when he has like an appointment at 3 p.m.? Is he able to get other things done like around?
Yes, he can do that, and I'm very jealous. He doesn't. He's not in the waiting zone of the typical like you feel like when like us ADHDs, we feel like we can't do anything until 3 p.m. or like yeah, sure, we can probably eat a snack or like watch a show, maybe clean, but we can't get into anything too important.
Right. Oh yeah, I don't want to overcommit myself. Like, you know, anything that'd be too mentally straining over the next 4 hours while I wait for my appointment to start. Like, I'm just going to play a game on my phone. Like, why risk it, you know?
Yes. I try not to overcommit. Most of my appointments now, I try and have before 10 or 11 a.m. Unless they really can't fit me in. And the only time is in the afternoon, then I'm like, damn, that's the only thing I got that day.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yes.
Yeah, I do the same exact thing. I would much rather have everything in the morning and just kind of front load it. Especially because like once I'm like in my day, like I don't think about like anything else. It's just like kind of what's in front of me if my day's stacked up, right? Whereas if I do it on the back end, even while I'm working, I'm still thinking about those appointments. Like we did this at basically 3 o'clock, and I've been thinking about this all day long. You know what I mean? And it's just something that lingers there.
Yeah.
And so like with how often it's lingering back there, I'm surprised how much I forget about it. You know what I mean? Like I will get my times wrong all the time.
Like it's like, oh yeah, look, I have time. It's 2:30. Okay, and then I have some time to, get ready for the appointment.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh shit, I'm late. Or like I'm either late or like way too early.
I'm so early for anything that's like not related to myself. Right? If I have clients, I'm early to every appointment. But if it's like for my doctor's appointment, I'm like,
Yes,
we can
that's
push
actually
that,
very true.
you know?
Yes, yes. Most of my like work gigs that I get, um, I'm super early and super prepared because the anxiety is like, I can't mess this up. I can't mess this up. I don't know
Right.
if that's healthy or not, but
Oh,
that's the
I'm
thinking
the
where
same
I have
way.
early, I can't mess this up. This needs to go perfectly, and perfect will never be good enough, ever.
Right? There's a lot of playing it out in my head over and over and over and over and over again.
All the different scenarios.
Right. And it's
What will they say if I'm 5 minutes late? What will they think? Oh, this is what they're going to think because
right.
based on history, this is how people have made me feel. So therefore, X, Y, Z, I'm an absolute failure. I give up.
Right. Right. I had somebody reach out to me. They called me like a voice call, right? A video call. And I answered in my pajamas. And I said, "Hey, I'm sorry, I'm in my pajamas still." And they said, "Spencer, you're still a professional in your pajamas." And I'm like, I want to get that like on a T-shirt or something, like still professional in pajamas, because like I feel like it was like an awakening for me because I was like, oh yeah, like I still am all of these things. Like even if I'm a little bit messy, even if like whatever, like you can't take away who I am, right? And I think about that a lot with like who I portray on TikTok, and not like I'm trying to portray a different character or something, but a lot of the stuff I shoot on TikTok, it's when I first wake up in the morning or like at the end of the day when I'm dead tired, right? So I'm just a mess. And like I've been that professional the whole time during the day, and so I just want to not be that person. So I try to like, so I'm like often like the anti-professional here on TikTok just because it feels good to not have to like have that professional mask on all the time, right? Like, and I've I'm like conflict or I'm having issues like feeling professional and having this TikTok at the same time. You know what I mean? But yeah, having somebody tell me like you're still the professional in your pajamas, I was like, I'm stealing that like, for sure.
Because you are, right? I mean, I know that, for example, yesterday I was speaking to someone, and they're in fashion. They're a fashion designer, and they were saying how they love how things are changing in corporate world and how to dress.
Mm,
Like you don't, for some instances, you still have to wear like a suit and kind of more casual, formal attire. Um, but for the most part, you don't have to do that anymore. And it's quite acceptable to show up in sneakers to a
mm-hmm.
meeting now versus before the pandemic hit. Um, it was still like, oh, you have to be super professional. I've never really been in that work environment where I've had to dress up in like office
Right.
formal wear because
Oh,
I've
you
always
look.
been in the artsy side of
Right.
business, the classic marketing,
Right.
PR outfits and stylists and photographers, where you know that they're going to the studio. Those are studio people because they do not dress in heels or like
right.
fancy office attire or button-up shirts. Um, but I think it's important to know, no matter what someone wears, um, they're still competent at their job. And this is what I was saying to this person yesterday, like with especially with ADHD, like some of us, a lot of us have sensory issues. So if we're uncomfortable in a suit or heels, that's the only thing we're going to be focusing on because it's bloody irritating. So
Yeah.
if we're sitting in a meeting and we're not comfortable, if we aren't able to fidget, or if we can't look away as often as we need to, or whatever the case may be, it's going to make it harder for the person with ADHD and also the people the ADHD person is working with or for. Um, and I don't know where I was going with that. Anyways, long story short, yes, pajamas for the win.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I had this is one question. Like I say, I don't prepare questions for this, but I really wanted to ask you this for the longest time. How do you keep everything organized as far as like what you have to do in life? Because I have no idea how to keep it all together. And like you're the business guru for ADHD, right?
Absolutely not. Let's just put it out. No, just because I've shared tips on it because I thought, oh, this could help someone. I never saw myself as that, and I did run a uh, mentoring business in a community for a while, um, and I've had to put that on pause because of trialing different medications. The community is still there, which is really awesome. They have a small group chat on Instagram, but no, no, I'm not a guru whatsoever. Two, I'm not organized. I am
Well,
organized
yeah,
if
I
I
just
when
want
I
to know
need to
like
be.
what kind of systems you're employing. Like, is it a post-it note system?
Oh, right. It depends on the month and what fancies me. Sometimes it's notes on my phone, but then I never look at it.
I'm the same way. Like, that's my problem with that. Like, I will send
Hmm.
text messages to my wife because I know I'll go back into that text chain. So I'm
Yes.
sending her like measurements and stuff for work. She's like, "What are you cutting?" I'm like, "It doesn't matter. I just need to write these somewhere where I'll remember to look at them again later."
Yeah.
That's so funny you
Yeah.
mentioned that.
That's smart. I email myself. Here's the ghost again, my dog. Um,
Does he open?
yeah, yeah.
I was
Like
gonna say, I
she can
saw the
open the
handle
door.
move.
Yeah. Oh my
Talent.
gosh. Oh, oh,
Oh,
sorry, you're winded. Sorry,
so
you're all winded
cute.
now. She also thinks she's a lap dog. She's absolutely. Oh, she's coughing now. Sorry.
You jostled
Well,
her. Oh no.
she'll like sit on my lap while I work, and I'm just like, I can't work. You're too big. Like you're not a lap dog. Um, what were we saying? Something organization. Oh, sometimes I email myself.
Oh right.
Yes.
I don't think I've ever tried that.
Yeah. It
So
it
are you an
works
alarm
sometimes.
person? Let me ask you that.
Yes, but if I get used to that alarm, I'll have to change the sound or the vibes of it because then I'll be like, stop the alarm, or I'll tell, you know, Janexa. I don't want to say the name just in case somebody has one. Like stop alarm,
That was very
and then I'll
considerate of you.
forget. Yeah, I'll forget. I'll be like, oh, I stopped the alarm. Wait, what was I doing? Oh my
See,
god.
I forget to label my alarms. So I'll be like,
Yes,
set an alarm for like 2 o'clock this afternoon, and then like 2 o'clock rolls around. I'm like, oh, that would have been
well,
nice to know what that was for.
yes. I'm sometimes an alarm person, sometimes I'm not. Um, I guess throughout, like, for example, if I'm on shoot all day, there's like a run sheet.
Okay, so like a
Um,
script.
yeah, like at this time, we need to have this done. Or like we need two shots for the day. So that's probably going to take all day. It's kind of like it's a great job I find for myself is because it's like time blindness and you're kind of focused on one thing, which is the big project
Right.
for the day. And the only break you get is lunch, but then you just pump it out for the rest of the day. So it's not like, oh, I have so many individual meetings.
Right.
I really love that about my work. That, okay, I have the meeting with the client, or I get a briefing on the job. I show up to the job, and it's just like laser focus for the day.
Right.
And then
I can see how beneficial that is.
and then you can be a hermit for the rest of the week while you're editing photos. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, what other parts of your job kind of play into your strengths like that? Like that, I can totally see how beneficial that can be. Like to be able to like kind of like bulk everything together and do just
Yeah.
kind of one job at a time. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Deadline from clients.
So, do you? How do you manage deadlines? Like, let me put it that way. Like, is it
So if a client says, we're launching this campaign, and so we need these images, um, we'll get those images done and send it off because there you can't not because the budget is too big.
right?
Yeah. So
So,
it's like, oh, I don't want to fail them. It's
right.
it's big.
So with those, are you more likely to kind of work on them, or are they like quick deadlines, like quick turnarounds, or are you more
Yeah.
likely to kind of
Quick.
delay
No.
till the
Quick.
last minute? Okay, yeah, you just got to get them
Fast
out.
paced. Like it needs to be. If it's like, oh, you can send it to us in a month, forget it. Like
Right.
that's the
Okay.
worst. Like you
So
need it
you have
tomorrow.
that quick turn time, and that keeps you kind of engaged with. That's so I have that very similar thing in real estate where you got to kind of like move on a deal, right? Like if it's out
Yeah.
there, you just got to kind of go, and you never really know like exactly or I never really know when I'm going to be really busy or really slow.
Yeah.
But like, so part of that is planning, and I think you said you're not very organized, but being able to accomplish something like that in a very short amount of time does take a lot of skill, precision, organization.
Yeah.
Um, and you talked about being a perfectionist. How do you balance all of that together?
How do I? I don't know. Do I? I don't know. Um, I think like with the organizational part for work, it's more easy for me now because I've been doing it for so many years. So I know what the ins and outs of a shoot, a photo shoot.
Okay.
It's kind of like, I don't know, how do you pour water in a jug? It's second nature to me.
Right.
So even if I'm like half dead on the day, like really tired, I can still do it because I've done it so many times.
Right. It's
Um,
like muscle memory.
yeah, I don't need to think. Um, and because most shoots are the same, like the system is the same in most places, anyways. It's the same kind of language.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like real estate, I suppose. You have your system.
Right.
Um, yeah, what system do you have for that? Like, do you find that the repetition of doing something, because you still have to be organized with knowing what materials to get, who you're talking to.
Yep.
The problem with me is I struggle with remembering uh, who I was emailing. I lose the email.
Yeah.
That's my problem.
My issue is like one of the biggest problems that I have, especially with ADHD, is I'll go see like 7 houses with somebody, and I can only really remember 2 or 3. They kind of
Mhm.
stick out, and they're like, "Well, that fourth house was really nice, but you remember the window over the kitchen sink?" And I'm like, "I don't remember the fourth house at all. I got to go through the pictures." You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
my short-term memory, I only grab specific things, and it's not usually what the clients are grabbing from houses. So when they
Yeah.
give me like descriptions and things like that, I'm like, oh, I really wish you would just give me a number or an address or something, because I'm
Yes.
not like pulling in what you're pulling in when we go and tour these houses. I can pick up on,
Yes.
on a lot of different things, which I think makes me a
Yes.
great real estate agent. But like remembering like what house had the panel wallpaper, like I can't tell you, you know.
Yes. Yes. Like, yeah, memory like that is really hard. Jumping back to how my husband helps me with my ADHD, actually, reading um, client briefs for me or reading an email for me because I think I have dyslexia. I think I have dyslexia. I
Okay.
don't know. I'm not diagnosed, but sometimes I'll get things just slightly off, like one word, and it'll mean a completely different thing. So I'll read it like 3 times in email, for example, and then I'll ask my husband, "Can you read this and tell me what they're saying?"
Okay.
Because I think I could be wrong. And sometimes, yeah, I'm wrong because I've missed details before. Um, and I didn't mean to.
Sure.
So having somebody be able to verbally, because reading is one thing, and then I try and read it out loud, but I don't remember to. But having the privilege of having somebody there to verbally tell me really helps.
Yeah.
So for me, I need something, if possible, like tangible, like show me what you need, and then write it down and tell me,
Right.
and then allow me to ask questions. I think asking a ton of questions, like especially with photography work, clarifying things over and over again. So you want, for example, you want this mug, a product shot of this mug. Do you want it forward, side, back? Do you want
Right.
drink in the mug? Do you want what background? What lighting were you looking for? What were the vibes? Where are you posting it? Like all these little details where I think a lot of neurotypical people say, well, it's just a standard product shot, right?
Right.
No, like this one mug to take a photo of is not just one shot. It's one, two, three, maybe four.
Right.
If it's styled, maybe 7 shots can be.
So that's interesting that you say that, because one thing I struggle with in my business is choice paralysis, right? So when you mentioned that list and asking a lot of questions, what I'm hearing in my brain that gets me excited is, oh, you eliminate choice, right? Like by putting it back on the client, you get all those details, and you can eliminate any kind of, debate in your
Yeah.
mind about what you need to do, and I love that. I do a very similar thing, and too many times I'll get caught guessing at what people want and just be way off, because like I'll be touring a property with people, and we see like 10 houses, right? I'm like, okay, well, it seems like you guys really like the ranch styles that we saw half ranches and half 2 stories, and they're like, not really. Like we kind of like either style. I'm like, really? Because the only houses you've liked were all ranches. And they're like, yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. And it's like, I can't like pick out what they want, like, you know what I mean? And I'm always trying to
Yeah.
make things work or like draw stuff from nothing. So by just straight up asking them, like, I wish I would do that more, to be honest with you. It cracks me up that you mentioned that. I'm just
All
admitting
those little
stuff about my business that I'm struggling with left and right. That's
yes,
fantastic.
I think all those little questions, if they're not answered for me, I have no idea if
Right.
that's what they want, or if that's what they like, or if that's what their audience wants or likes. Like I have no clue. I need to know the answers.
Right.
They'll be like, no, I need it written down in an email in the brief. And also it comes to like, I guess, time blindness as well. If someone says, oh, can you shoot this cut for me? I'll be like, yeah, that's easy. Well, actually, this is going to take more time than
Oh,
someone might think.
right.
It takes time to set up the shot. It takes time to, emailing clients back and forth.
Oh,
That takes a lot of time.
Okay, do you time block? Is that something that you do? Okay, I've tried time blocking, and like setting up the time blocking took me like an hour and a half, and I was like, this can't be the most efficient way. Like, you know what I mean? That's so funny.
Yeah, I've tried time blocking too. Like one of my neurotypical friends, they just moved to another state. I'm so sad. Paige, if you're watching this, come back, please. No, but I'm happy for you. I asked her, she said, I don't think I have ADHD or autism. I don't think I have a diagnosis. So she believes she's neurotypical in that sense of the word. Every brain is, I guess, what's that? Is it diverse, or I forget the correct terminology.
Yeah.
But she doesn't have ADHD or autism or diagnosed depression, anxiety, none of that. It's wild. I'm like, you're a bloody unicorn. Like,
Right.
why are we friends? Like, I don't understand. Like, we're on such different levels in our heads. Like,
Right.
it's just such a mess here. But she can time block, even like allocate days to do certain things in her personal life and work life. I said to her, I'm so fascinated by your brain, because she's asked about my brain and how I work. I said, I'm more fascinated about you because this sounds like a fantasy, like,
Right.
you know,
Like I
like
was gonna ask,
Lord
do
of
you
the
like
Rings style.
ask her
Like, is this?
questions?
I did. I was like, I have a question for you. Her name is Paige. Paige, do you write lists? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, where do you write your lists? And she's like, my phone. I said, do you look at your list on your phone? And she's like, yes, every morning. It's the first thing I look at. I look at what I need to get done for the day. And that's what, if I don't write it down, I'll forget. And that's why I write it down. I'm like, do you do those things on the list? She's like, yeah, most of the time. I don't get it. Like, it's just like so blasé. Like, it's just a list,
Right.
and I can, and she can rest on cue. So she said to me that if she's tired, she can go to bed and read a book and rest. I'm like, but do you do that intentionally, or does your body force you to rest?
Right.
You know? And she's like, I do it intentionally. Like, I say, this is a day where I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to lay in. I'm like, what? You mean you're not like burnt out to the ground?
Right.
And so you can't move from the bed?
You're just having like a comfy day.
Yeah, she's having a comfy day.
With no stress or guilt or anxiety about not working or doing it. Like, what? I don't
These
buy
people
it.
exist. What? I don't even understand.
Talk about a unicorn, right? Like, holy cow.
I was like, no. She's like, yeah. And she says to me, but you know what, Salandra, I'm so grateful for our friendship because you've shared so much about your ADHD and shared about your medication and what you need from our friendship because of your medication. I'm just so glad that I have a friend like you, like that. And I'm like, Paige, it's really not a choice that I overshare. Because I guess she can choose what she shares and what she doesn't.
Right. Yeah. That's the whole idea that people think like so differently than myself is so new to me still. Like, I can't even like describe it to most people, but it's like you find out people are just like seeing different colors like than you. They're like, yeah, you guys didn't know about Blurple? Like, no, I didn't know about Blurple. They're like, yeah, we've been seeing it the whole time. Like, we just don't talk about it because everybody sees it. And you're like, I didn't fucking see it, you know? I feel like, yeah, there's been like a secret kept around me, you know, that I guess I never just paid attention enough to other people. And like, maybe that says more about me. But I didn't realize like people were out here like thinking so abstract compared to me. And for me, it's abstract. For them, it's just neurotypical. I'm like, you guys are abstract. Like, what do you I don't even know how that
They speak
works.
in riddles.
Oh.
They speak in riddles.
Yeah, my wife is...
Well, I think so. My friend Paige, I'll be like, do you want, like, hey, I'll be going over to her house and be like, do you want... Oh, no, a better example is we were out for her birthday with a group of her friends. I'm like that extra friend, I think. I could be wrong. I feel like I'm that extra friend outside her friend group. Thank you for
I'm sure you're
adopting me, Paige. I appreciate you. And I said, do you want another cider? And because she was drinking a cider. And she said, no, it's also a very Australian thing. I found that in America, a different cultural difference that I quite enjoy is you guys love and are okay with telling people what you want, especially in customer service stuff. Like here in Australia, it's like, no, it's fine. My food is shit. Sorry, I'm allowed to say that. My food tastes like poo. No, but it's fine. But in America, it's like, this is not right. There is something wrong with take it back. So the culture here is very much like, no, it's okay, thank you. And it's very like, what do you want? What don't you want? It's very confusing. Anyways, it was her birthday. And usually here, if it's your birthday, you unapologetically say yes to things you want, no to things you don't want. It's your day, you know?
You get one day to get what you
You get
want.
one day to say what you want here. So I ask her, do you want another side? And she goes, no, it's okay. And I'm like, do you want another cider? She's like, no, no. I'm like, I said to her, I don't know if you want one. I said, I'm just going to buy you one. So I just bought her one. And she wanted it. And so later on, I said, do you want a hot chocolate for dessert? Like, because we're having dessert. I said, would you like also a hot chocolate? She said, oh, no. I'm like, okay, well, I'm ordering myself one. Are you sure you don't want it? She's like, no. Oh, but if it was in front of me, I would drink it, I suppose. And I'm like, okay, I'll just get you one. Like, do you want it?
Yes. No. I'm bad at picking up on hints. Like, I'm lucky I found my wife early on because, like, I would not be able to sense if anybody's hitting on me to save my life, right? Like, my wife will be like, oh, is it recycle day tomorrow or is it just trash day tomorrow? And I'll be like, it's actually recycle day tomorrow. And that will be the end of it for me. But in reality, she's like, hey, take the trash out, But like as soon as I answer her question, I've met her need on this whole topic and we can move on to the next thing. Like if she would just be like, hey, can you take the trash out? I'd be like, yeah, for sure. Unless there's one caveat to this. If she asks me to take the trash out while I'm on my way to get the trash, it will totally kill any motivation I have for wanting to take the trash out. Like, so you got to get me in a sweet spot, right? Like, I would prefer you ask me to do it, but don't ask me as I'm about to do it because my brain will be like, oh, absolutely not. Like, let's not do that.
Same. Absolute same.
I'm sure I drive people crazy. But yeah, I would appreciate like more directness from people. But I guess I get a little offended when people are too direct with me too. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being picky and I'm just like, I just want to be treated special is all. Like,
just agree with me at all times and be honest.
It's not
Don't
hard.
be too honest. No, just kidding.
Honestly,
I think if it's like something
huge.
directed at me, it's like, oh, like I take that as criticism sometimes.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I really don't care what people say. I don't know if that's healthy.
I think it is.
Maybe it's just,
especially for like the platform you're on, right? Like,
yes.
Like, you take a lot of crap on TikTok. Like,
I feel like you would get more crap because you have more followers.
I'm a white guy. Like, people don't get mad.
Really, you don't get?
Like, I get some. Don't get me wrong. Like, and I get a lot of ableist stuff. Like, people like just ADHD isn't real. But I've sat in on your lives. Like, you get way more crap than I do.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's awful.
Yeah, I've deleted a lot of comments and blocked a lot of people. I'm not so bothered by it because I don't get it in the masses and nobody's commented directly on me
Right.
as a human that I know that larger creators get. Like, oh, you like commenting on their looks or the way they talk and trash talking, that essentially harassing and bullying and abusive comments. I don't get that. I get, oh, because you're a woman. I'm like that. I don't get offended by that at all. I'm like, just like, you're probably alone at home, like,
right. Just
bored. I don't know what you're doing as a whole. Your words don't hold weight to my life.
It's a great way to look at it. Their words, sometimes they get me. I'm not going to lie. Like the first person that called me lazy, I just went around my house and showed them all the cool shit I had done. And like I made a video. I took it down because I felt like, oh, this is being like braggy. But I was like, would a lazy person build their own table? Would a lazy person build it? Like, because I do a lot of DIY stuff. And so I just like walked around my house and showed them all the shit I had built and like, assembled them. Like, and this is what I do on the side. I also work 50 hours a week, I was like, oh, I don't want to be that person where it's like, oh, look at me. But I was so mad And it was one of the very first like negative interactions I had with anybody on this app, and I still think back to it like, oh, I was such a baby about that. Like I should not have let it bother me the way it did.
I like to dance and sing to these people.
Oh
Love
yeah.
songs usually.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had like a comment like this one person, and I just decided to end it, and um they were just going at it in the comments, and I said, you're still following me, you don't need to follow me. And he's like, oh, I don't know, they were like, oh yeah, that's right, thanks for reminding me, I'm unfollowing. Like it was changing my life. I'm like, you following me or not is not gonna
Right.
change my life, mate. Like calm down.
Well, and these people think they have like the highest of importance when in reality they don't have any posts, any pictures. Like, they're just like faceless.
And usually
trolls.
I find that if I stalk who they're following, it's young underage girls. So I have commented back to someone saying, oh, looks like you're following too many underage girls, hey?
Oh.
Like, and I told my husband, he's like, yeah, you tell him. He like eggs me on even more.
Right. Yeah, my wife's just
Yeah,
like,
like,
don't
come on
fight
my
with
page.
internet strangers. Like, you don't want to make anybody mad. like, yeah,
No.
that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to talk about ADHD and stuff. But like, I'll stand up for myself like every now and then. Very rarely. Most of the time, I just block, and like that gives me satisfaction, right? Because I know how much work it goes into like creating like a backup account. For me, it's a lot of work. For them, it's probably nothing, right? But like for me, I built it up in my mind of like being this like terrible like experience that they go through to like once you block them and then they come back with a different account. Have you had that happen? Like
No,
okay,
I don't
I've
think
had
so.
this happen
Maybe.
from one
Oh, really?
person. They got like really upset with me for some reason. I don't even remember what for, but I blocked them and then they came back. They're like, you can't block me. And I was like, well, I'm just going to keep, like, it takes 1 second for me to block you. Like, and so I get so much joy about thinking about that person, like, going in and making account after account and, like, doing all this hard work for basically no work on my end to just block them forever. But, yeah, the people obsess about, like, being right on this app, which I think is weird. Just, like, let it go. Like,
Very different to Instagram, hey? I find that perhaps, I don't know if I'm qualified to say this, but from my observations, I feel like TikTok feeds off controversial opinions,
mm-hmm.
and the algorithm or people like that. So for a while, I was on the wrong side of TikTok. I was like, bloody hell, where did this post go? And then it's just like all these like rubbish comments, just bullying comments like, you're a woman. I'm like, where am I? Like,
Right.
like virtually,
the
where the hell am I?
1940s in here?
Yeah. So I'm like, man, I need to start like telling the algorithm somehow like this photo, like so I don't like over like and over comment on different videos just so I could get back
Right.
on the safer side of TikTok, where these misogynistic men who hang out. I'm like, get me out of here. This is not where I'm meant to be.
For sure.
Please.
Yeah, I spend most of my time on like woodworking TikTok, to be honest with you. It's just a gentler place.
I'm on like dog TikTok,
Are you?
cat TikTok.
Yeah, those are the
I'm
good
on,
ones.
Like, DIY TikTok.
Oh, me too. Yeah, like like I think it's funny because like I sometimes I'll scroll through and just see like who other people are following. Like I do it a lot on Instagram because I'm pretty new, so I'm like, oh, I want to find all the cool people to follow, and it always like surprises me because you can learn about other people's interests by who they follow in there. So like I'm following like 8 or 9 like blacksmithers. So I'm sure like if anybody goes through my stuff, they're gonna be like, oh, Spencer's really into blacksmithing. It's like I really like watching it. Like I think the glowy metal is really cool and shiny. But like I don't think you'll ever catch me out there like actually trying something like that.
I love glass blowing. Is that what it's
Oh
called?
yeah, that's really cool
It's
too.
so cool.
Right. That's I mean, but a lot of that's just the visual of the video, right?
Yes.
Like that's what's
Practically,
good to
would I
me.
do it? No. It's a lot of skill. Jeez.
Right. Well, I just keep thinking like, oh, it's got to be hot. Like, I don't want to be that
Like,
hot.
oh my God, like it'd be
Right.
so stuffy. And
Right.
to get it right, jeez.
Right.
Even pottery. I see people doing
Oh yeah.
pottery. I'm like, wow, that's looks so fun and beautiful and artistic. And I'm like, listen, Solandra, I talk to myself. No, absolutely not. You're not going to get into this. Not another hobby, okay?
You can
You
try
already
it.
have,
Like all you have to do is buy 80 pounds of clay and one of those big ass wheels, right?
because
And you
it's all or
can
nothing, right?
right,
You can't just
exactly.
start small. You need the whole shebang. Otherwise,
Right.
it's
No, I
can't
don't know
start
how that
small.
goes at all. Like at all.
Nope, nope. Um, yeah, I feel like TikTok is a whole other. I would like to, post more, and take it more, I guess, more as work, as a content creator versus posting for fun, which I do right now. I post for fun.
Yep, me too.
Um, but because of the trolls, I'm not going to even call them trolls because they're actual people. They're not like some mythical creature. They're people who choose to comment hateful things, and it's not okay.
Right.
They're not some video game character. They're NPC. They are a person. Um, like I do think to myself sometimes, if I post, is it worth it? Yes, because I want to help someone or share this for fun, have make someone laugh, you know, bring some positive vibes. Um, but if there's no real end goal or like a vision there, the trolls that do hurt, most of the time they don't, but when they do, it gets tiring.
Yeah.
And I don't know how people do it with millions of followers. Um, I would just get burnt out.
Right. It's got I mean, you're exactly right. Like and just the scale of it. I think about those people too. Like there are a lot of jerks out there in this world and they like to direct a lot of their anger, frustrations on the world onto people on TikTok and like we
Yes.
as creators are easy targets, right? Like we're the ones being totally vulnerable in this relationship, right?
Yes.
Like it's totally one-sided, and I understand exactly what you're saying. Like, um, it's not only like okay, I'm worried if like this video will be successful or not, or people will like it. But the fact that people could like be resentful or retaliatory because of a video that you put out when you're trying to help, like it's crap. Like you know what I mean? Like it's just bullshit.
I get more anxious if a video picks up.
I do too. Oh my gosh, I do too. Oh, I tell people like there's videos I post just for me. Like I need everybody to see them, but I would love for nobody to even interact with at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if a video like that picks up, you're like, oh God, no, 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 no.
Yep.
Oh, what do I do now? What do I do now? I don't know what to do now. Like, it's like, okay, I'm going back into my cave. Okay.
Right. Like,
Bye.
just shut it down for the day. I'll look at this tomorrow.
What's wild is I saw like my views becoming more consistent, and I'm like, oh no, one of my videos is gonna hit 1 million. I had one video, and I know so many people, and for me, it was a big deal to get 1 million views, and
Yeah, it's
I
huge.
was absolutely paralyzed. And so now that video is on private, so you can't find it. Um, uh, and then I saw again the traction was, oh, there's something in my mouth. Starting to build up again. So I was like, I need a rest. I
Right.
can't.
It takes a toll. Like I remember the first video of mine that really went viral, like over like 100,000 views. It was me crying, right? And it was like realizing how much time I had like wasted or like had been cost to me as an ADHD person.
Oh yeah, that's a
Uh,
big thing.
and that it was so hard for me to one even make the video, but then to have it blow up and have people comment on it, and like every time I open up that inbox or whatever, it's me crying again, and it's like I'm like, this is what I'm going to be known for. And for like 10 months it was my biggest video, and it's like this is like my most vulnerable moment, and like some people on that video were just like the biggest assholes, like, oh, look at this crybaby, and it's like, oh fuck. Like, what do you do with that though? Because I really love that video, but I can only watch it once. I stopped even responding to any comments in it, right? It's just too much.
Like a vulnerable hangover.
Right. Oh, and it just wouldn't go away. And like for months that video was just super popular, but it was weird because when I made it, I was real and vulnerable. But like after a month, I was like a month removed from those emotions, right? And so it was weird for me to have people connect with it, seeing it for the first time, and them feel those like emotions, and me being like, yeah, I already dealt with that like a month ago. Sorry. Like, I wish I could help you out through this process, but like, in all honesty, I was just trying to get myself through it. Like, I don't know. It's just, it was,
I find it really difficult giving, like, when people ask for really personal advice.
oh yeah.
Um, I'm like, oh, like the boundary is like, this is TikTok, not a therapy session. I'm not a professional. So I do try and encourage people to go see a therapist if they can, if it's accessible to them, or speak to someone close or call a hotline or something like that. Because I'm not that person. I can't
Right.
be. Because I'm not consistent for them. I've got,
you're like,
you know, like
you're like, number one, it's not like you're training. You're like, I'm not a professional. You're like, nope, zero consistency.
zero consistency. Like if you're looking for emotional support, forget it. Like, you know, like
I'm the same way.
I would love to be that. I love the idea of romanticizing, of being, you know, like that motivational person, that person who is constantly able to give really like cool, quick liner advice. What I've learned in years of therapy and also studying psychology and being diagnosed with ADHD and learning so much about our community is that those one-liners can help for a hot second, but long term, not really. That's why I really love. I haven't watched recent episodes, but Mayim Bialik. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her name, but Big Bang Theory. Amy.
Oh yeah.
Fowler, is that her character's name? Sheldon's girlfriend on the show. She has a podcast called The Breakdown. Is it called The Breakdown or Breakdown? I'm butchering it. But
it's all good.
he interviews people and talks about mental health things. She even brings on like pop psychology people, and actually challenges them. And I love that.
Oh, nice.
I love that. She says, instead of always agreeing with these people who are multi-millionaires, maybe close to billionaires, some of them, and challenge like, so it's that easy, you know, to do X, Y, Z.
Right.
Oh, I really love the way she challenges.
Like, all you have to do is apply yourself. Like, just
the quick hits. Like, oh, apply. Yeah, she'd be like, but
if you can see it, you can dream it. Or like,
yes, like you just got to, you know, go to the sauna once a week. You know, right. You just got to surround yourself with great people, and know. And the thing is that I find about these pop psychology people, they'll say things that you can agree with, but the information sometimes isn't very reliable.
Right.
So for you to go, oh, that must be true because they said X, Y, Z, that was true. But then their actual philosophy isn't reliable.
Right.
It's only available to people who are privileged enough or elite, who have money, or even have the brain for it.
Right. That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna throw that in there too because I just had this like epiphany the other day where it was like I've read tons of business books and I've always felt like some of it applied and I could steal bits and pieces, but I've never had like a whole cohesive like, oh, this all makes sense for me. And I'm wondering how much of that is just like my ADHD mind, like reading and processing this, and it's like, oh, that will never work. Like, I can steal this. This makes sense. Where like those one-liner sound bites, like I can analyze and I can take what's important from it, right? But uh, that's how I've always felt. Is like, okay, these are nice books and helpful, but they're probably meant for somebody else. Like, no matter what the book I read, right? Like, and so I felt like a lot of my business knowledge I've just kind of had to piece together from other people's like sound bites and like micro advice, right? Like that's what it feels like to me. So when you said that, that's the first thing that popped in my head.
Yeah, it's so true. Like, oh, that could work or that could work. But the problem with those pop psychology and those motivational books, which it's great if it helps
Right.
someone, awesome. Uh, Wait, where was I going with this? The problem with it is the problem with those things are they seem they make it as though it's so definite
Yes.
and this is it. No, like this is the information you need. If you aren't able to do it, you really start to question your enoughness.
Right. You internalize it, right? Like, oh, if this is the way this system works and this is the proven method and I did this whole thing and I failed, like that is something wrong with me. Not this
Yes,
internet guru that I just found
yes,
on Google, right?
yes, yes.
Yeah,
That I think that's a big
absolutely.
problem with pop psychology. I would call people out all the time, especially when I was studying psychology. Oh my God, like I cringe at me calling out people. Like, if a friend would say, "Oh, I learned that it's about mindset," and if like when that whole conversation started, it's about mind. I'd be like, actually, it's a lot more complex than that. Blah
Right.
blah blah. Oh my God! Like now, I look back, I'm like, I wouldn't even say anything. I just let them have it. Like
Right.
if it's helping them a bit scientifically from studies, it's like actually that's not accurate enough.
Not enough.
Like, sure, it could be true, but not really.
Right. I think when I hear some stuff like that, I think a lot of like toxic positivity, right? Because I have the
Oh,
very same reaction when people are like, "Oh, you can do this." Like all you have to do is just try a little bit harder, whatever it is. When you can't do it, you internalize that failure from it. So I think that's the toxic part of the toxic positivity is the fact that when it doesn't happen, you've actually had a negative impact on somebody, right? Like, and we see it on TikTok all the time. Like, I feel like
dangerous.
anybody can come up with like a list of people that they've probably like blocked or like at least avoided their videos just because of that style, right? Where it's like, oh, you can do anything. You just have to like engage yourself or train your brain to be able to unlock these special abilities, right? And it's like, not everybody can do that. Like, no, like
And
let's
they'll try and use really big words.
right, right, right. That'll convince them, right? Like,
And you're like, no.
like who needs it? It just, I think it's really interesting. I think our community more than anybody is sensitive to that because we've heard those type of messages before where it's like, oh, if you just apply yourself, try harder. And so when we see that happening to us again, there's a lot of pushback, and there's people like in our community like that wouldn't be fighting this if they were in a different community. You know what I mean? Where we take it
Exactly.
personally because we know what the cost of failure in a toxic positive situation is, and it's internalized guilt and shame, right?
Yes. I've been in like coaching groups, and I've been in some amazing ones as well. But there's one in mind that I'm thinking of, and the motto was "Do all the things." Yeah, and it's like I can't do all, and it would be like if you want it bad enough, you would do it.
Oh, right. I hear
You
that with
know?
like men in relationships. And like I get it for the most part, but like for me personally, like if they were like if he wanted to, he would. And it's like if I wanted to, I would. I would. Like trust me, I would. Yeah.
I would do it. Yeah. But sometimes we can't.
Right. It's so frustrating.
Yeah. I think like being diagnosed, especially just learning and the whole like it's so weird being on it's awesome and not weird, but it's a different space to be in and to navigate the ADHD TikTok community on TikTok community on TikTok. Obviously, it's on TikTok because
Right.
it's just a TikTok. How there's like different groups of people who, you know, believe that it's a superpower and they don't understand that by like great that you think that for yourself, but by saying that isn't really helping anyone
Right.
because the people that for anybody that has ADHD to some degree we need accommodations in life
Right.
with work, family, whatever. By saying it's a superpower, saying that we are like superheroes,
Right.
like it's almost minimizing it.
It is.
ADHD just is. It's not a superpower. It's not uh, degrading,
Right.
whatever. It just is a diagnosis. But for some reason in our Western culture, we love to slap on these labels. And is it good or bad? Is it
Right.
evil
Yeah,
or
there's
is
no
it?
morality to it, right?
Yeah, it just is. Let it be. And if someone says they need this accommodation, believe them. If they say they're struggling, believe them. If they enjoy it, believe them.
Right.
Why does it need? Why do you need to motivate people and say embrace it as a superpower if they don't see it as a superpower? Just let
Am
it
I the
be.
only one who like I get the vibe that like when somebody says ADHD is a superpower, they're trying to convince neurotypicals and not people with ADHD because like people with ADHD hear that and they're like, yeah, we live it. Like, there's also major drawbacks. Yeah, sure, some parts are cool, but like, I feel like most of us can acknowledge that like there's good and bad like experiences that we have because of our brains, right? And I feel like for them, I think they're just trying to like explain to neurotypicals. It feels like to me, like, hey, this is actually like a beneficial thing. Like, I don't know. That's just the vibe I get, where they're just like they're more trying to prove it to other people and make it like true
Overcompensating.
in themselves. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's why therapy. If they, most of these people have access to therapy because they seem quite privileged
Yes.
financially. Usually, I could be wrong. Um,
Oh, let's not kid ourselves. There's a very specific demographic of people who have the propensity to say ADHD is a superpower.
yes,
Unfortunately, they look a lot like me, right? Like,
yes, yes. Um, also, um, I love on TikTok. Oh gosh, I have a blank on his name. That one ADHD guy at that one ADHD guy on TikTok. Um, he makes such great points about ADHD that when I read studies about it, it lines up exactly with what he says. Like you need to talk about the financial aspect, like the cross section of
yeah,
finance and also race and also demographic and all these things. You can't talk about ADHD without it.
exactly.
You can't. And so just by saying point blank it's a superpower, it's neither here or there. It
Right.
doesn't really do anything.
Right. Well, and you and I talk about breaking stigmas because both of us have been negatively impacted by the stigmas of ADHD in different ways, right? Like, uh, and so when we hear like, oh, it's just for kids, right, or it's just boys, right? There's been so many people that have been left out of the equation since the start, right? That we have so much work to do to dig out of that, that it just, by saying it's a superpower, I think it writes off, or it tries to cover up a lot of the intersectionality that we've totally ignored of ADHD, which I hate. Right? There's a struggle that has happened here. Somebody said that ADHD hasn't been around very long. To me, I was like, it's been around the whole time. We've just been struggling in silence. We didn't even know what was going on with ourselves. Like, people 100 years ago had ADHD and they were struggling in silence. This isn't just a little boy thing. It isn't even a race thing. Like, it transcends all kinds of cultures, all kinds of genders, everything, right? But so much of the focus has been on just one aspect, one tiny group within that community, and I feel like we're paying the price for it now. Like, could you imagine what our level of understanding of ADHD would have been if we had started studying it in women as well as men, like, 35 years ago? Like, we're just now getting into understanding, like, how different hormone cycles affect women in ADHD, right? Just now, like this year, we're getting into these type of topics when...
Well, women have been, asked, talking about it for a while now because we feel the pain physically and mentally, right, and everything. But unfortunately, not enough, I think, from what I've seen and what I've heard. I could be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong. Is not...
Let me correct myself.
I don't think I'm wrong. Not enough money is being put in. And what happens is... a friend of mine who's studying her master's in psychology at the moment, I can't remember what she's specifically studying, she was saying that more women go into like therapy versus research. So there's more men doing the research side, and she said maybe that's one reason why there isn't much research done and money put in for hormones for people that get their period or don't get their period when they're meant to.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see that for sure. Sorry. Just went blank there for a second. Can I ask you a question about your ADHD? I'm sorry, I just got a text from my wife. She's on her way home. So I need to ask you this. Like, how often do you feel like you're in panic mode? As far as, like, when you get a time frame, like, my wife will be here in, like, an hour, right? But, like, as soon as I get that notification on my phone, like, I feel like the countdown starts, right? And so, like, I don't know what it is, but, like, my heart's racing faster. Like, I'm like, I don't even have anything to do. Right? But I feel pressure now to do something. Do you ever feel that? Like unwarranted pressure is what I'll call it. But it feels like I'm just picking up other people's anxiety or anxiety over nothing. Just because, like, you get an email or something like that. Is that something that you're picking up on, or is it just me?
I'm trying to imagine, like, if my husband was coming home, or someone... if a friend was coming over, yes, I would feel more anxiety than if my husband was coming over.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
For example. But I do feel a lot of, before I was diagnosed, I'd feel a lot of anxiety. But ever since being medicated, my anxiety has dropped so much. It's ridiculous. Like, I'm even more, I guess, clumsy than before. Because before I'd be so hyper aware of, oh my God, that's going to fall. Or, oh my gosh.
So you were like the hyper vigilant type of anxious. Okay.
Yes.
That makes
sense. And now being medicated is like.
So you can actually
but not all the time.
Bit.
Not all
that's
the time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think I was the opposite, where, like, I wouldn't say I was ever hyper vigilant. But more like constantly aware, if there's even a difference. but yeah, like, and what I'm getting at is like I don't feel anxiety about like my wife coming home, but the fact that I know she's coming home is just like another thing like I keep in my brain. Um, I don't know if
Oh,
I'm
yes,
like
yes. It's almost like that waiting mode. What should I
yeah,
be doing
yeah, yeah,
until
yeah,
then?
yeah. Very similar to that. Yeah, where it's like, okay,
Yes,
now I've just got this other thing that I'm thinking about and like worrying about and like have to be aware of, right? Like, and so that
yes,
awareness is like a distraction. I was talking to somebody else today, and we talked about like how um, easy it is to become like distracted when we're talking. And so I've had this happen like 4 or 5 times while we're in conversation where
yeah,
it's like,
same.
oh, I think I'm going to lose it. I think I'm going to lose it. Are you ever in like panic mode where you've
Oh, yeah.
absolutely forgotten exactly what you're saying,
Mm.
but you have like 3 or 4 words left? And you're like, oh, I hope I figure this out by the end of
And
this
it's
sentence.
gone. It's
Yeah.
just like blah, blah, blah. Wait, what was I saying? Yeah.
Right?
And it's gone, or like, oh, I heard what you said. Oh, oh no. I totally forgot what you said.
Right.
What? And I get so anxious because for me, I don't want the other person to feel like I'm not listening to them or I'm not trying to hear them or I'm not trying, like, I genuinely do want to remember what people
Right.
say or remember
Right.
what I'm saying. Because sometimes it feels, I guess, silly. Like it's such a classic trait, you know?
Right.
And I don't want to be like, especially if I'm in a
Like, oh,
client meeting and it
so
happens, it's like,
cliche,
please
right?
don't take me any less professionally because I lost my train of thought. Like that's what I think. And then,
Right. Well,
oh,
I wish, honestly, I wish it was more of a cultural norm to be able to like forget those type of things. It shouldn't be like a requirement in our society
no.
to remember somebody's name the instant that you shake their hand, right? And just
Funnily
know it
enough,
forever.
funnily enough, in Indonesia, like I feel like it's such an ADHD friendly place
Yeah.
and culture because there's something called jam karet, which means rubber time.
Okay.
Like it just means like no one's ever really on time.
Right. Like,
Like, and then that's when you use that saying of rubber, like it's just like
yeah.
flexible
Flexible.
time.
Yeah.
And it's not like a moral failure if you're late. It's kind of like island time. It's not a moral failure over there most of the time.
How
I'm
nice would
sure that
that be? Ah.
different contexts. Yeah. And also like being loud. Like I for me, I'm that annoying person that can be in a restaurant laughing way too loud or like getting way too excited and people like calm down and I'm like, oh now I'm sad because now I've been made aware that I'm being too loud.
Right
But
now,
in
I'm
Indonesia,
hyper vigilant on myself, and
yeah,
I'm
like
gonna
oh now I'm
withdraw.
gonna
Yeah.
withdraw and be quiet. But in Indonesia, it's normal, and we laugh about things that are like it's so odd. Like thinking about it, we laugh at things that are tragedies. I don't know, maybe it's but it's like normal.
I I totally do that.
You know, it's like I shouldn't be laughing at this, but I am. Like
Yeah.
or forgetting something. Like I have Indonesian clients. They said we need to talk to you on the phone. It's important. Get on the phone. They're like, oh, I totally forgot what I was going to tell you. Uh,
That's
and
awesome.
that's normal
And they're just like,
with
go with it,
Indonesian
right?
people.
That's
Um,
awesome. I love that. Like, book me a flight.
Indonesia. On the other hand, my dad is Swiss. They are very punctual.
Yeah.
Everything is extremely rigid. There is no gray. There should be no gray.
Right.
Swiss people like are perfectionists. Most, I'm generalizing here. It's like a Swiss watch, literally. Like people, like the way people work in Switzerland is literally like it has to be perfect. Every single detail
Right.
needs to be excellent.
It's
So
a
that I
lot of
have
pressure.
that side,
Right.
and I
I'm
have
trying
the
to picture this all like this household, right? Like this is what I'm trying to picture little Sandra growing up with.
chaos. Like my dad, he like I'd be like, Dad, I want to mow the lawn. I don't know. Sometimes as a kid, I loved mowing the lawn. No
Did
idea
you?
why. I enjoyed it.
Just the smell of the
Uh,
grass or something, huh?
Maybe, and I think I liked the the wheels, maybe.
Right.
Like, yeah, this is so. Anyways, I'd be mowing the lawn, and my dad would be watching. And if I didn't do it exactly, like perfectly, he'd be like, "Stop!" He'd wave and be like, "No, no!" I'd be like, "What?" He's like, "You," and then he'd have to take over, and I'm like,
You missed a
whereas
spot.
yeah, whereas my mom is like, "That'll do," like
Right.
so different,
Right. I feel like my
so
kids
different.
might be getting a little bit of that right now with me and my wife. I'm just like, it's all right.
And then this person's like, "No, it needs to be perfect."
Right.
Yeah, that
Uh,
was my dad. Everything. His shirts to this day is folded square.
oh, really? Like, and brings out a ruler and tucks everything in. Like,
Like, he doesn't even need a ruler. He's been
just
doing
got
it
it
for
down.
so.
Just got it down. Right.
Wow, I can't even believe. And like the trains in Switzerland, I lived there for a few months. Um, they will announce like a 30-second delay or a 10-second delay. I don't know if they still do that anymore, but they will
Right.
announce that.
Could you
In
imagine
Indonesia,
being that persnickety about stuff?
oh, they are. Oh, they really are. And it was really tiring for me over there.
I can imagine.
Oh, yep.
That's hilarious. Well, I've got to run. This has been amazing. Thank you so much
I,
for
I have a
coming on.
question for you
Oh
though.
no,
Wait,
yeah,
I
yeah,
have a
yeah.
question for you before we hop off.
Okay.
With the people you've interviewed already, I'd love to know which ones you've enjoyed and why. I'm so fascinated because you started this and it's so exciting. So
Yeah.
I'd love to know
So
your
honestly,
favorite
I've enjoyed every single. So I've done. You're my fourth, right? And
already.
yeah. So I love every single one, and I love how different each one has been. So with Adam, we talked a lot more about like his personal life, right, and how he deals with the relationship, mainly with his girlfriend, right. And Ron, he's an ADHD coach, so he came in more trying to like challenge my perception on ADHD and the way I think, which I thought was really really cool. And then I met with Jen last time, who she's ex-Mormon and she has this amazing history. Like, so she spent most of her life in like the Mormon Church, and then she came out like of that, and like now she's in a polygamous uh, relationship, and she's experienced or exploring her sexuality on all kinds of different levels, and like she's amazing, right? So I learned a lot from her, and she was great because she fidgeted the whole time. She was knitting like the whole show, which I loved. And then like our conversations here, like I just love picking your brain, and I've always appreciated your perspective, right? We've talked business, probably more. Talked more business with you than anybody, right? And so I love being able to get more of like the personal side from you, right? Like we've talked a lot about even like CRMs and stuff, which I mean is fun. Like we geek out on that
Oh,
kind of
that's
stuff,
so boring.
but like,
I
right,
don't need it. That's so
right,
boring.
right, exactly. But like getting in here and being able to, just like actually have a conversation with you and get to know like your background and your experiences at school and stuff. Like I'm learning so much about myself from every one of these. Uh, that I don't ever want to stop because I feel like I take more away than I ever have to put into them, which is great. Like it's a net positive for me. I'm sorry for my guests.
I
Like
love how you use that positive.
right. I can't help it, right? But like my whole goal in doing all the TikToks and everything was to connect with ADHD people, right? And so this is just like a brand new way for me to do it. And I think it's a much more intimate way of doing it. And I love the way the conversation just paths out and we can kind of track it back. We touched on a bunch of different topics and subjects, but it all felt very organic. Like there's no like awkward pauses or anything like that, which I appreciate, right? Because it's just so natural the way I talk to ADHD people. I had somebody who, before I started the show, they're like, "You're gonna have to carry a few guests. You realize that, right?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Yeah, some guests just aren't gonna be that entertaining or that interesting." And it's like, I've never had that problem talking to any ADHD person or any
Yeah, neither.
neurodivergent person
Yeah.
because everybody has their own experiences to talk about, and everybody's been, for the most part, very open about sharing those. I haven't had anybody be like, yeah, we're not talking about that, let's change the subject, because it's just a very natural conversation. Like, and I love every aspect of it. It's really, really cool for me.
Oh, that's so cool. I'm so happy for you and your podcast.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
I was so chuffed when you asked me to be on it. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Oh yeah, you were one of the first people. Well, I started with like the people I trust, right? And the people I've interacted with before. Like, I don't want like complete strangers coming on the show right away, right? Like, I'm sure we'll get there
I
eventually.
really wish what's her name was still on TikTok.
Jen?
Jen meets 88.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have loved to well, maybe I don't know, like to hear her story with her family life and being diagnosed and as an adult as well. I think
Yeah.
such a different life.
Yeah. I've been trying to pull her into this show. Like, she, as soon as she wants to, she can come on here. Like, she's one of my favorite people. Like, we stayed semi in touch since she left TikTok. But yeah, I definitely miss her.
Is she officially gone?
No, she still has her account. And like, I follow her on Instagram, so like, she's actually active on Instagram. But just
You should
TikTok
have
is
I'm
too
sure you've
much.
already thought of it. That one ADHD guy.
Oh, I have a whole bunch of people I'd love to get on here. And like, if we
That'd be
started
so
listening to
great.
people, yeah.
I'm like, hey, I have a request, DJ.
Right,
DJ,
right.
I have a request.
Like, I wish I could get like, that big that people are like, I would love to come on your show, but nobody even knows about this show. It's like,
You got to start with the small people first, and then, have you heard of this trick where, not a trick, but like strategy for podcasts is like, if you get this one person on, and then in the email you say, I've had this person on and this person on, and would love to have you on, and they're actually mutuals or something.
oh, okay.
And they go, oh, my mutual friend or whatever has been on the podcast, I guess.
Well,
Good idea for me.
the way I think about it is every neurodivergent person has the same story they can tell, right? Like, it's just a matter of like me knowing that person, right? Like, I would much rather interview, like, video or viewer following size or whatever doesn't really like intrigue me all that much, right? Like, people get it wrong all the time. Like, if you ask me, like, you should have hundreds of thousands of followers all over because you give like quality, helpful
That's
information.
so nice. That's
You know what I mean? But
so
like,
kind.
followers doesn't mean anything. 'Cause, like, I feel like you give some of the best content out there, right? That's why I have you on my show. It's not like
That's
follower
so nice.
accounts or anything like that. And so we all have a story. I would love for every neurodivergent person to come on here and tell their story, right? I don't care about followers. And my goal is to just spread the word. And we can all spread the same message. We all have the same voice because we're all neurodivergent, right?
Can't wait to see where this goes.
Should be fun. Like, I'm enjoying every second of it. So, I'm gonna end it now. Sorry, I am not exactly polished or professional in this, and this is unedited and uncut and everything. So I'm gonna end the show now. Thank you all for watching. You can catch Salandra on TikTok at Salandra. I have her name on the screen, or it's Salandra Education on Instagram, right?
I've tried to change it to match. I can't bloody change it. So
Well, all right. Well, there's two different options for you. Feel free to pick one, but make sure you're following Salandra by like the end of this episode for sure. Bye, everybody.